The United States Supreme Court is a broken institution. It has lost the trust and faith of the American people. And the person who is most singularly responsible for that is Justice Clarence Thomas. He is corrupt. Understanding Clarence Thomas requires us, though, to turn back the clock 32 years. How did we get to this spot in 2023 where this man has so thoroughly broken the trust, the ethics, and integrity of the Supreme Court? It begins in 1991. President George Herbert Walker Bush nominated Clarence Thomas to be the second Black American to the Supreme Court. He succeeded Thurgood Marshall, the lawyer who argued Brown versus the Board of Education, a civil rights legend, a judicial icon. Clarence Thomas was accused during those hearings of sexually harassing a Black woman law professor named Anita Hill. Clarence Thomas responds in 4 parts. The first thing that Clarence Thomas does is deny the allegations.
I would like to start by saying unequivocally, uncategorically, that I deny each and every single allegation against me today that suggested in any way that I had conversations of a sexual nature or about pornographic material with Anita Hill, that I ever attempted to date her, that I ever had any personal sexual interest in her, or that I in any way ever harassed her.
The second thing that Clarence Thomas does is denounce wholly the judicial confirmation process as a disgrace.
I think that this today is a travesty. I think that it is disgusting. I think that this hearing should never occur in America.
The third thing that Clarence Thomas does is say that he doesn't care about being a Supreme Court justice at all. All he cares about is integrity.
The Supreme Court is not worth it. No job is worth it. I'm not here for that. I'm here for my name, my family, my life, and my integrity.
And finally, Clarence Thomas tries to make his accusation a racial issue. He says that he's being digitally lynched in the U.S. Senate. It's a remarkable moment.
And from my standpoint, as a Black American, as far as I'm concerned, it is a high-tech lynching for uppity Blacks who in any way deign to think for themselves, to do for themselves, to have different ideas. And it is a message that unless you kowtow to an old order, this is what will happen to you.
Alexander Hamilton and James Madison, principal authors of the Federalist Papers, which argued for the passage of the Constitution, believed that the Supreme Court was the least dangerous of the 3 branches of government. It was the least likely branch to be the cause of despotism arising in the new republic. Alexander Hamilton talked about lifetime appointments as being contingent on the good behavior of the judges. Now, let's apply Alexander Hamilton's good behavior standard to Clarence Thomas. What we've seen with Clarence Thomas is corruption. And the response in official Washington, head scratching, yawns, speculating, well, maybe is it corruption at all? The idea that a billionaire with business before the court could spend what is in essence pennies on the dollar to buy off a Supreme Court justice and make him functionally a pet is corrupt. Harlan Crow, a man who collects Nazi memorabilia with a Hitler fetish, has paid for Clarence Thomas's great-nephew's very expensive private education. He has bought homes for Thomas family members. Now we learn that Leonard Leo, the political extremist and judicial activist, who more than any other person has shaped the modern extremist court, funneled payments to Clarence Thomas's wife through none other than America's most prolific liar not named Trump, Kellyanne Conway. The whole of the extremist right-wing movement in America is corrupt. There are two things that always accompany far-right fascist movements. The first is violence, and the second is out-of-this-world corruption. And that's what we see with Clarence Thomas. Now, the Chief Justice, John Roberts, has a major problem on his hands. I ran the confirmation process for Chief Justice Roberts when I served in the Bush White House. Let me be clear. He is an honorable man, and he's an institutionalist. He does deeply care about the integrity of the court, and it must break his heart to see it wrecked on his watch during his time as the Chief Justice of the United States. The collapse of integrity on the court is not the fault of John Roberts, but it is his responsibility to address it directly and to clean it up. And make no mistake about it, the American people have reached a conclusion. Their conclusion is the court is corrupt. It cannot be trusted. It has become extreme and unaccountable. This isn't what the design of the founding fathers was. There was an element of trust involved when it came to judicial ethics. Clarence Thomas has obliterated that trust. The court is not above ethics, and the court is no better than its lowest member, its most corrupt lifetime appointee. The Supreme Court must be fixed. How can it be fixed? There are four things that must be done. First, the American Bar Association is the ratings agency which bestows a qualification ranking on judicial nominations. It was broken before it became totally discredited. It must be revived. The second reform that is badly needed is the ending of lifetime appointments. In 1787, Americans didn't live very long. In 2023, there are frequent news stories talking about 21st and 22nd century lifespans reaching 150, 160 years. The idea of a corrupt Clarence Thomas figure serving on the Supreme Court for 90 or 100 or 110 years is not good. It's a threat to democracy. Term limits should be established of no more than 15 years. Thirdly, there must be serious criminal penalties for failure to disclose financial conflicts during the confirmation process. We recently saw this example with the radical judge who tried to make mifepristone, the important abortifacient drug necessary for hundreds of thousands of American women who have miscarriages every year, illegal nationwide with the stroke of a pen. And finally, Chief Justice John Roberts needs to put his foot down. The United States Supreme Court, because of Clarence Thomas specifically, but also Neil Gorsuch, must establish ethical standards. There's nobody that can honestly appraise and look at the Supreme Court and say that it hasn't broken. Mitch McConnell helped break it. A broken confirmation cycle of political violence, retribution, and vengeance helped break it. But more than anything else, it's the extremist rulings of the judges, their arrogance, and their entitled corruption that makes this a requirement to fix the bonds of trust that are necessary to be sustained in a democracy. The breaking of trust between the American people and its government is like a cancer. It's eating away at our democracy. And as that cancer eats away at the bone mass and the connective tendons and tissues, it makes space for a demagogue to rise. It makes space for an extremist to rise. It makes space for a man like Donald Trump to come back to power. And this time, he'll take out American democracy all the way and finish it off. That's a threat worth talking about. thinking about, because we need to stop it cold.